Hey folks, good morning or afternoon.
Morning.
I'm actually on the road today, so just doing my best to get things rolling here. But I'm glad to see Alois, you're here. So
Yeah, I just have to be also a bit in and out because I kind of had a double booking with the Linux Foundation today that I couldn't move because there's 10 people on it.
okay. Yeah, I actually I found a place to sit here, so I'll do my best to help out. My video's not working though, so yeah, so we're about ready to start, and this is getting recorded. So I know we've got Ravi from the Kraken team is going to present Kraken to us, so we'll get to that. Get to that in a minute.
Yep, nice to meet you all.
Yeah, we'll give you a chance to introduce yourself in a second. In fact, we
Oh,
can go ahead and get started.
yeah.
At least you already posted in the meeting notes. Let's see the agenda for today. Um, Usually we start the meeting by asking new folks to introduce themselves if they want, and no, not forced. But just tell us, what your interests are, what you do. Give us a chance to know what to call on you for. So if anyone wants to introduce.
Yep. Josh, can we wait for a few minutes for Pradeep to join? Pinging him on the side.
Yeah, well, you're not going quite yet, Ravi, so he has a couple minutes to join in. So just have him come as we're going. Hubbard, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi, I'm Hubbard Smith. It's so nice to meet you all. I'm a startup founder. I live in Salt Lake. We're doing some work involving Kubernetes and KubeVirt and preventing data exfiltration. Name of the company is i4Ops. Delighted to be able to contribute here. Please consider me a resource.
Awesome. Great to have you, Hubbard. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Ravi, you wanna? I guess you're gonna introduce yourself in a second, so I guess we can hold off, and maybe you and Pradeep can introduce yourself. I'm looking over other things that we have for. We have a kind of a small crowd today, so let's see if there's stuff to go over. Status updates. Um, you all might have seen the project reviews that we were doing, the annual reviews for sandbox projects. We're taking a break from those. We do have Kraken today, and then we've got a couple more sandbox projects next month. We have IOFlow, Atlantis. I'm pretty excited about that one actually, and KubeBurner actually also from the similar group at Red Hat that's doing Kraken. So updates. Let's see on working groups. I'll share with you all, and for anybody that's watching this later, the platform maturity model is well on its way to getting published, hopefully in time for KubeCon. It's in PR number 472. I'm not putting into the notes now because I'm a little not in the best place to do that, but it's number 472. Please take a look. Alois, in particular, I'm looking at you. We need the tag leaders. We'd love for the tag leaders to have a look at it and sign off. And if you want more in-depth discussion about it, let me or Abby know, or Robert. Happy to talk more, but we definitely want everyone to have an eye on that. Yeah, other interesting things. I guess, another thing that I think worth bringing up to everybody is the Canoe project. CNOE, which AWS announced like last week. It stands for Cloud Native Operational Excellence, I think, something like that. And it's a tool and some reference implementations of that tool that generate a platform, generate an IDP, as they call it, an IDP builder. I haven't been super deep in it, but it's kind of cool that they made something and published it, and and wanted to be aligned with CNCF's projects and stuff. And they're really interested in working together and trying to advance something together. So they're going to come talk at the platforms working group on next Tuesday. And we're hoping to meet some with them at KubeCon. So, you know, one of our goals has always been to have some prototype platforms. So this maybe is a step in that direction.
Yeah, I think is my sound working? Yes. Yes, I've got the link for the platform maturity model if you want to look at that into the docs, Josh, so no problem there. And I'm about to add a link to the Canoe docs, which I think is useful. I think it's really an interesting opportunity to collaborate on something that's a bit more difficult to maintain. Like, because we in the working group have talked about how reference architectures require like ongoing maintenance because you have to bump versions, and at the very least, right, software rots, and we're not the right group to do that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think one thing that's going to be an interesting conversation next week at the platforms working group is that this is being kind of proposed as as a working group and possibly being aligned under the tag or under the working group, platforms working group. And I know we've in the past struggled with projects that have come that have been very like driven by a single kind of solution or difficult to generalize across cloud native. So for example, the more recent API project that came very strongly focused on the Google landscape and was hard to generalize across more kind of organizations and more kind of cloud native use cases. And I think this is something that we need to keep an eye on for where Canoe is at today, because today I think it's very focused around AWS and how do we encourage and like bring this out to becoming more kind of applicable across cloud native as a part of working with the working group and stuff. So if you're interested in that, platforms working group next Tuesday meeting, they're going to be hanging out and we're going to be having some chats about where to go forward. So very exciting.
Nice. Thanks, Abby. Yeah. Any other updates? Oh, KubeCon. So I know I'll be there. Abby, I think you're going to be there. Alois, are you going to be at KubeCon?
Yes, I will. Actually there even beforehand, so if you need me for any prep work, I'll be there because our entire
Nice.
team is coming there. So we usually take KubeCon as a team meeting. So let me know if you need something upfront on site and any types of support, or if you want to meet, let me know.
Okay. Just to let everybody know, and we posted a thing in a blog post earlier this week or last week. We're gonna have a project meeting from 8 to 12 on Monday morning. That's November 6th at the Marriott. I don't know the exact room yet. That's not like a conference really, but they give us a room that holds supposedly about 20 people with a screen and things like that. And it's for us to get together and talk about our projects. So tentatively, we kind of said the first hour-ish or so, we'll talk about tag business, working groups, stuff for the real dedicated folks here. And then tentatively, we're thinking a couple hour-long sessions of talks and discussions related to app delivery, hopefully for some of our constituent projects or other projects thinking of coming, or some of the topics we've talked about. So we have an open CFP for folks that want to lead discussions on that Monday morning. So check it out from the blog. You can get the link. So that's one big thing we're doing there. The other is the booth. So we have the booth. Officially, we got the booth in the PMs, but I noticed if you look on the KubeCon pages, they say that we have the booth all day. We have a full booth. So, but I'm only trying to staff it and, do things there in our actual slot. I just wanted to let everyone know that if you do want to hang out there in the morning, you can too. But we officially have it from, I think, like 2:30 on Tuesday, maybe like 1:30 on Wednesday, and 12:30 on Thursday. It's like staggered earlier each day. So there's a spreadsheet. I put it in a tracking issue. You can find it there to sign up for booth duty. And also for that, we're seeking to do some small scale talks and discussions either at the booth or maybe we can find a place, although I'm not counting on that. So that's also part of the same CFP form, if you could find it there in the blog. And then last but not least, I'm not so great at advocating for stuff I am doing. We're doing a panel talk on Tuesday afternoon on platforms. It's for the tag, but it's the working group platforms talk. It's going to be a panel with Abby and I and another important contributor in Ouija platforms, plus a couple end users. So please join us, and we'll come to the booth and talk with folks afterwards too. Okay, any other status updates that we should share? Okay. So if that is all for that business, we have Ravi and Pradeep from the Kraken team at Red Hat. They've proposed contributing Kraken to the sandbox, and we asked them to come here and tell us about it, tell us about what it does, its architecture, a little about their roadmap, a little about their community and governance. So yeah, with that, I want to call on Pradeep and Ravi. Could you introduce yourself, and then we can give you about 20, 25 minutes, I guess. It's 10:15, so let's shoot for 10:35, 10:40. Yeah, take it away, please.
Yeah, sure, Josh. Thanks for the introduction. So this is Ravi. I'm part of the chaos engineering team at Red Hat, focused on improving both performance and reliability of Kubernetes at scale. Trying to kind of bring in performance angle to chaos and make sure the end users have the best experience under failure conditions. Nice to meet you all. Pradeep, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
We don't hear you, Pradeep. Even now, still don't. It does say you're unmuted on our side.
Yeah. Maybe Pradeep, can you try rejoining the call?
You want to get started, Ravi, or do you think he'll?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. Yeah, hopefully my screen sharing works.
Yeah, Alois told us before he was going to have to leave at 15, so don't worry about that. He didn't run away from your presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I'm Pradeep, Pradeep Surisetti from Red Hat Performance and Scale Engineering Department. I'm an engineering manager who work on Kubernetes and different applications which are on top of it. Ravi, you want to get started? You want to share your screen?
Yep. Trying to share my screen, Pradeep. I think this should work now. Can you guys see my screen?
You can see calendar.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, you're showing your calendar.
1 second.
Yeah, we see the Kraken, the last one.
Yep. Awesome. Let me move this and then go to the, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, let me get started. As I said, we work with performance and scale engineering department in Red Hat. So one of our main role is to experiment with different communities and projects to identify performance and scale challenges and improve them. So with this, as part of this job, we get to work with, I would say we're fortunate to get to work with different communities, starting from Linux kernel, QEMU, KVM, OpenStack, and all the way to the Kubernetes communities, all the layers. So coming to this Kubernetes part, as part of this, we get to benchmark different Kubernetes clusters, both performance and scale wise, and also applications on top of it, to make sure to run these at highly performant and large scale. While running Kubernetes clusters at large scale, we started noticing some of the failures unintentionally. So for example, on a large scale Kubernetes setup, while Ravi was running like 2000 node setups some time back, so we had to reboot one of the nodes. It brought down the whole cluster. So this kind of issues, we started noticing it unintentionally, which we haven't planned. So we started noticing it more and more, the HCD to going down and APSO and things like that. So as you know, failures are very common, especially at large scale. It's hard to predict how these failures will propagate through the system and which of them will affect SLAs or cause an outage and things like that. We were like, wait a minute. So we decided to embrace chaos engineering tools to tackle this problem internally. So we developed a couple of chaos engineering tools like Kraken, which you'll hear more about it, and then built on top of it. So as I said, we have been working on this. So our intention has been, so we decided to be more proactive instead of being reactive in this approach. So the core idea is identify and improve the performance, improve reliability, performance bottlenecks under chaotic conditions, especially at large scale under heavy load. So that's the reason we want to start these tools and start a small team and focus heavily on that. Wantedly, deliberately cause interruptions and track performance, scale, and SLOs. So that's where we have been going towards that. So once we started building it, we have been using it for about more than 3 to 3.5 years, maybe more than that. Once we started using this, some of the universities and external users, some of the external users, Kubernetes users started leveraging these tools. That has been super helpful for us. We learned a whole lot of new use case and try to incorporate them here. Some of the community members added different use cases and also different features like AI integration, parallelization of workflows, and things like that, that we will cover in the later slides. The motivation behind moving to Kraken is, as you know, we want to get benefit out of the support, guidance, and oversight here from the community. And also we want to share and collaborate on methodology to cover wider use case. As I said, we have been learning a whole lot from our existing users, and with this CNCF community users, it will help us even move further. We want to build this and help Kubernetes ecosystem and community to in cross-pollinating the areas of both chaos and performance. Mostly we speak about chaos, but we want to bring this performance, SLAs, SLOs, and bring it to the picture with chaos. And these are the repos we have. Once this is accepted, we want to move the whole GitHub organization to the CNCF and rename it as needed. Ravi, you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure, Pradeep. Thanks for the walkthrough. So I'll give a quick introduction to what Kraken is today, what features it supports, how we kind of bring in performance angle to chaos, and then the future roadmap, of course, what we are currently working on, as well as the future work items in mind. So all of these are driven by both end users, community, and other use cases. So we have been actively getting feedback, like Pradeep mentioned, from like a bunch of folks, which is really helping us understand what use cases we need to focus on, and then what will help harden Kubernetes as a whole, as well as the application stack, of course, running on top of it. So Kraken kind of sits outside the cluster. It doesn't really run inside the cluster for obvious reasons. Like, we don't want it to become victim of its own chaos. So it kind of runs outside, targets various Kubernetes APIs or cloud level APIs. We have support for different cloud platforms that Kubernetes can run on, like AWS, GCP, Azure, VMware, Alibaba, and whatnot. So, and it kind of hits those APIs and then injects the chaos. And there are a couple of post-processing steps that it does. One is for each of the scenario that it supports, it has built-in checks to make sure the targeted component recovers from the failure. If not, of course, it's going to flag the run and say, hey, like, hey, user, like the component never recovered, so I'm stopping the run as is and not going to the next steps. Provided the component recovers, it has an integration with a component called Cerberus. So just to give a quick overview of what Cerberus is, it's a utility that again runs outside the cluster, monitoring the entire cluster health. So by default, what it monitors is like health of Kubernetes API server, etcd scheduler, controller manager, what's the health of the nodes look like, are they in ready state, are they flapping, whatnot. It can really track all of those very granularly, like within like a second granularity. And the good thing about Cerberus is it aggregates the entire health into like a single go no go signal, so that we can easily like understand, okay, like I injected chaos, okay, everything is good, like the component came back, but like what about the entire cluster health? Like, is it healthy? Is it good? Like because like let's say like I'm just taking etcd as an example, given that it's the default system component, but it can very well be like an application stack like Kafka and others. So let's say like we inject a failure in etcd, like it might have cascading failures on like other components in the cluster. So it's very important to kind of get a holistic, like high level overview of what the entire cluster health state is during as well as post chaos, to understand what areas got impacted, and then if the entire cluster is healthy as a whole. So Kraken kind of hit Cerberus APIs and say, hey, like Cerberus, just tell me like if everything is good. Once it says, yeah, everything is good, it kind of moves on to like the performance evaluation step. So that's done between the start and end time of the chaos as well as post chaos. There are two steps. So what it supports is provided Prometheus is deployed in the cluster, it can talk to Prometheus, taking a profile with like PromQL queries. So it's very flexible, like we can input whatever PromQL queries we want to evaluate. So it can be, hey, like I want to evaluate like number of its leader elections, or I want to kind of make sure API server latency is less than 1 second for the users, etcd fsync latency, etcd peer network latency, whatever, like whatever metrics that we think are important. It can be application level SLOs. In case of Kafka, they can be the message throughput, and then the broker CPU utilization, the consumer latency, whatnot. So it can be anything that's available in Prometheus, and it will kind of go through each of those based on the severity set. User can actually set a severity saying, hey, like I want you to Kraken, like I want you to exit one or fail the scenario if this particular SLO is missing, or like there's an SLO miss. Or like I want you to just inform me that this happened, but I'm okay, like I just want it as info. We can kind of set the severity levels, and Kraken kind of like runs through all of this and gives us aggregates like the component level health status, Cerberus for the entire cluster health status, and then the whole performance evaluations to kind of give us like a pass fail for the scenario. By the way, like feel free to like interrupt me if there are any questions. We can discuss around that.
Yeah, Ravi, I actually have a question right
Yeah.
here. Just wanted to clarify what's in Cerberus and what's in Kraken. So the PromQL query verification, that comes within Kraken. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Joe.
It doesn't depend on Cerberus. Okay.
Yes. So for the Cerberus, it's kind of a separate utility, but Kraken has an integration with Cerberus. Provided like Cerberus is deployed, it can talk to it. It's all optional, like so we can enable this.
Oh, okay.
Depending on
So
like
you could still get a lot of value from Kraken even if you don't have Cerberus.
Yes, we can skip the whole Cerberus piece if you don't want it. Yep.
And you intend to donate Cerberus with Kraken?
Yes, that's right.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. And so the one of the features that we are actively working on, like Pradeep mentioned, is around running parallel and complex workflows. Okay, like if we think of like a chaos scenario, okay, there's this app and we are injecting chaos, that's good. But basically in real world, there can be multiple faults happening at the same time, and we want to like kind of mimic like closer to like real world environment. So we are kind of adding an ability for the user to say, hey, like here is my workflow, and I want to kind of load Kafka, like keep kind of pushing messages and consumers consuming the messages, so that there's activity going on and stressing the Kafka control plane. Or in case of OpenShift, it can be etcd API server, and like a lot of objects and create deletes of objects, and then run different chaos scenarios. It can be, hey, like take down this one piece of control plane and then kind of inject a network latency plus inject like a CPU memory hog or IO hog to kind of understand, hey, like what happens like when multiple failures happen at the same time? How does it impact like the component availability, SLOs, performance degradation, so that we can find out like where the bottlenecks are and work towards hardening it. So that's one of the features, and the other features are chaos AI. So kind of
Ravi, that first you were just describing that you have some built-in scenarios with a set of tests for each one. Is that what you were saying? Like, so there's like a Kafka scenario which knows how to apply chaos that would test Kafka.
Yes, we do have them, like, but it's not part of the Kraken repository today. So, but we can bring in all those configs and call it like a Kraken test cases that people can just say, hey, I have a Kafka cluster. Can I'll leverage like whatever configs that people usually test. So we can make this more of a community thing where like people can kind of contribute what scenarios they are using in Kraken. But yeah, it has capabilities to target both application level, platform level, more like hey, like I'm creating a zone outage. How does that zone outage impact the application running? Like, is it well designed well enough to kind of handle like one zone outage? Like, what's the performance impact and whatnot? So right now, like we have like the example use cases around like the platform itself that can be used both for application chaos testing and both platform chaos testing. But yeah, moving forward, we want to kind of welcome community to like kind of contribute whatever they are running so that it helps everyone. So
cool. Yeah, thank you. That's good info.
yeah. And the next piece is the chaos AI. So we want to kind of leverage the whole AI piece, AI ML, to improve and automate test coverage for chaos. So what this piece does is I'll just describe the problem that it addresses. So if you think about like any application stack, like it might have like 10 deployments, bunch of routes, right? Like exposing the applications, it can be a dashboard, whatnot. Like let's say like we want to kind of design chaos test cases for that application stack. So we'll kind of go through the application, try to understand the interactions between each of the microservices of that application stack, and then kind of think, hey, like, okay, let me inject a latency here, and that might have an impact. So we'll create a chaos test case and then kind of make sure, run it, see what happens and whatnot, right? So if you think about like a big application stack having like n number of components, and we want to understand, hey, like what combinations of chaos scenarios when run in parallel against what combination of components of an application stack hit together in parallel will have an impact on like the whole SLA SLOs. So it's very hard, right? Like it becomes like a huge problem space. Basically, there can be like hundreds of test cases, permutations and combinations that we'll have to run. So we want to kind of avoid that. At the same time, have make sure like we have like all of that covered. So we are kind of working on like a chaos AI plus chaos recommender. This is being contributed by IBM open source community folks, like Pradeep mentioned. So what it does is it has two pieces. One of them you can already see in the Kraken repo is called chaos recommender. So that utility will give a user an idea of like what chaos scenarios in Kraken might have more disruption to their service. What it does is it kind of profiles your application to see, hey, is it network intensive? How much CPU is it using when compared to the limit set on the pod? If it's using heavily, then it kind of categorizes that as, hey, like it's CPU intensive. So you might want to run like CPU hog just to make sure like it has like reserve resources, or like how it reacts when there's CPU hog from other components and whatnot. So it kind of already knows what Kraken scenarios and then kind of have grouped into like different categories. So depending on your application profile, it can give you some recommendations saying, hey, you might want to definitely focus on these, but again, like also focus on rest of the scenarios. Like and that is like something that gets fed into like this whole AI model. What it does is it takes Kraken scenarios as input, application SLOs as input, and says, okay, I'm going to run like different combinations of Kraken scenarios against different combinations of components, and then output based on the findings, which is of course SLO hits. So let's say we say, hey, like if the latency is greater than like 1 second, you get rewarded. So it uses reinforcement machine learning and says, hey, like, okay, I'll reward myself because I hit an SLO thing that user assigned. So it will kind of keep learning, and then the final output is it will give you a list of that whole combinations without us having to kind of think, imagine, miss, whatnot, and kind of like let us like run those. So make sure like we have good test coverage and automated test coverage instead of us doing the whole manual work and kind of missing the edge cases. And there's also one more piece, which is krkn telemetry. By the way, these are all like already optional or going to be optional. So depending on what user wants to do, they can enable, disable different pieces. And
Ravi, the AI piece. So you actually you're training, building a model like in the user's environment.
yes.
Okay, and you've got the framework in place for somebody to get that up and running themselves.
We have the chaos recommender in place as of today, but chaos AI is something that we are actively testing, Josh, like and something that we are planning to kind of bring it to the community soon. Like it's kind of in the testing phase right now.
Okay, cool. But yeah, good to know. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. So the for assisting this whole chaos AI being worked on by IBM community, we have built a piece, like Tulio from our team built a piece called krkn telemetry. So it's same as like typical telemetry, where like we collect chaos plus cluster metadata. So it's going to have information around what chaos scenario did we run, what parameters, what kind of latency, what component did we attack, whatnot, like all the information around what was run. And then what's the pass fail, like, okay, did it fail here, like did it fail there, like what's the overall pass fail status for that scenario, is there a regression, whatnot. And then with that, there's also cluster metadata attached to it, which is of course like what networking solution, what cloud provider is the Kubernetes hosted on, and then how many pods, how many secrets, like the whole scale, like how many nodes, kind of providing some context around what scale was this run, and metrics dump from Prometheus, and what alerts got triggered, and logs. So with all this context, like we are providing like this as a feedback loop into this whole chaos AI piece, for it to kind of assign more weightage or priority to the components that are failing more often, and whatnot. So like, and again, this is optional, and user can kind of keep collect data for their application stack, and then use it to like build their own AI ML use case. Like this is like a piece that's not tied with anything. Like it's all like kind of, you can just keep collecting data, use it for any of the AI ML use cases. Any questions before we move on to the overview?
No questions. Just keeping an eye on time. Definitely you could keep going for another 10, 12 minutes. We don't have a
Okay, awesome.
else here.
So yeah, so I think just to give an overview, we want to like definitely cross-pollinate performance and chaos. So we want to kind of not only run chaos and look at like how the component reacts, but more around what's the performance impact during the chaos, post chaos, like whether it's on par with like the ideal performance SLOs, and then how much degradation is happening during the chaos, so that we can find out like what bottlenecks to focus on and improve like the Kubernetes to be well prepared for like running the applications at large scale. So these are all like what we covered already, like the whole running complex parallel workflows, as you can see, kind of an example, and then the whole AI, how it can help us moving forward for like improved test coverage. And these are a couple of supported scenarios, just to give an idea. Like I won't walk through like each of them, but there's pod level, container level, node level, zone outages, CPU, memory, IO hog, service disruptions, basically taking down the entire service, application outages, more like blocking ingress egress traffic to like based on like pod labels, and then network chaos. You can kind of cause packet loss, bandwidth restrictions, whatnot, and power outages, like kind of mimic a situation where we take down the entire cluster and understand how fast like the cluster can come back like when we power it back on. So this can very well be because of power outages, which are rare, but also like there were like a couple of use cases we heard where user wants to shut down. They have like multiple 6 or 7 clusters running, and they want to kind of shut down few clusters to save some costs and whatnot, if there's not much load on it, and then kind of bring it back on whenever like it's like a prime day or something, they want to just bring it back on. So such use cases, disk level and then the pod level network chaos are like some of the scenarios. And we have like many more things coming up. If you look at the roadmap, we are actively working on a lot of the features as of now, and then there's a couple of scenario additions and features like what we listed here, like moving forward. So more around like reporting as well, as you can see, like we want to also provide user the ability to say, hey, okay, give us like what metrics you want to collect in a profile, and then we kind of push that to Elasticsearch. We can like push it to Elasticsearch provided it's deployed, like and then bring
This is Ravi.
what happened and everything very easily, like and things like that. And of course, like all the scenarios, we want to kind of separate anything. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we hear you. Sorry, you dropped up for a second, Ravi.
Oh, I'm
I
so
think we
sorry.
heard- I think we heard
Yeah, I
most
was
of
just
it.
saying like would want to give user the ability to kind of get a report in Grafana with like the important SLOs, and SLAs, and kind of get an overview of like what really happened with the chaos. So that's one more feature in progress. So there's so many features like what's mentioned here.
I wanted to mention you've got the chaos testing guide, which I noticed before also. We were talking before you came on, and maybe there's an opportunity at some point to publish that via the tag. That might even have, in doing something like that might even help you bring a little more community to Kraken, like you were saying, to build some scenarios. Like if we use Kraken as the foundation for writing a paper or something like that. No pressure, you don't have to do that, but just putting it out there.
Absolutely, Josh. That's a very good idea. Yeah, good.
We would be more than happy to do that, this sort of thing. Yeah. Go ahead, Ravi.
Yep. Yeah, so here are like few resources. So everything is in the GitHub organization. So like Pradeep mentioned, we ideally want to move the entire ecosystem, and yeah, like get a lot of feedback and help and everything from CNCF and the community moving forward. Yep. So I think questions. Any area that
Anyone
you want
else?
more?
Anyone here? Anyone have questions? I have a couple, but I'll let others go first. Okay. One question I had, you kept mentioning, Ravi, and I have a theory what you mean by this, but I wanted to ask. You said you focus on performance. And what do you mean by that? And like, is that different than the other? I think there are 3 other chaos testing frameworks that we've got. Are they less focused on performance?
Yep. So by focused on performance, I mean providing user the ability to measure performance. So kind of shipping the load generator, which is like a KubeBurner. So basically, it's one more tool that's being worked on like by the same department, performance department. So kind of like providing the load generator plus the performance level SLOs, and the whole Prometheus integration like will kind of help the user understand. So we are going to ship default profiles like you mentioned, Josh. Like we already have like default SLOs that are being checked for each of the scenarios, be it pod latency, HCD level metrics, API server metrics, the whole cluster health state, whatnot. So but basically like emphasizing and providing like tools to kind of aid users to measure performance in addition to like the whole reliability and resilient space, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Is that so? Like let's say Litmus or Chaos Blade or Chaos Mesh, those are 3, are they more focused on errors and you're focused on performance? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Both, Josh. Like I think so these are like couple of the things that features like that complement Litmus Chaos, for example, like something that we want to run, something that runs outside the cluster, don't want it to be like an
Right.
operator, and something that kind of gives an overall cluster health state. And so Litmus does like a great job like injecting chaos. So it's not about like we just want to like complement and cover like more wider use cases around like performance as well, in addition to like kind of injecting the errors and observing like what happens. And then of course like something that we want to bring in is the whole complex and parallel workflows, because when we were running for Kubernetes at scale use cases like Pradeep mentioned, something that we didn't find out there was, hey, like how can we kind of loop in this whole load churn plus like bunch of chaos scenarios and then kind of coordinate everything. So like we don't want it to be more like okay, I just run chaos against a component and that's it, like, because in real world we observe there can be multiple things going wrong, so we want to ideally like cover that use case. So we want to definitely like use this and for like users to use this for the use cases. And of course like the whole chaos AI piece, because like we are also like end users, right? So getting feedback from like community, like we thought, hey, like, okay, instead of them building their own scenarios, thinking about what can really like disrupt my service and all that, like let's actually build like a utility that will kind of help the users like do it for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that is super cool. I have to say that the idea of AI to do this, I want to check that out. I have another question. How do you anticipate your users using this? Like, will they integrate it in a delivery pipeline? Maybe is it something that they run ad hoc, like once a day? Like, how would somebody go about using this?
Yes, so we basically recommend, like if you look at the chaos testing guide, Josh, like you mentioned, like we recommend users to build like a continuous chaos testing. It shouldn't be like a one-off thing. So more like okay, like we have like list of SLOs for our application stack that we want to always measure and make sure there's no regressions, and then have regular chaos running against like your environment, and then kind of making sure they're like within like good numbers. And then if there's any regression, of course, like immediately like flag us. So definitely build a chaos test pipeline and continuously run it, like more like a continuous process.
We just to add to that, we internally try to run it in a continuous manner, continuous delivery pipeline.
So like you run it in the container, like as like the unit test, integration test, end-to-end test, and then chaos test kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So like in your application delivery pipeline even.
Yeah, especially application delivery pipeline.
Cool.
Especially if somebody were to run before pushing their images, everything to the production, this sort of thing will make significant impact. So we don't want the production cluster to take down, and this will be given. So while I get to hear from some of the users, community users, we are hearing some of the, especially in the FSA space, some of the users, they come and ask about, they want to make sure they run this before pushing it to production. That sort of thing, they have the use case. We learn a lot of use case from these users.
Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of run it in a test environment. Don't run it against prod necessarily.
Yeah. So what we
really
are learning
confident
from them is they learn these users, the users in yesterday we were speaking to somebody, Ravi, in Singapore. So what they do is they run a staging environment and make sure they run it for quite a bit of time, and see once they feel comfortable, then they upgrade that to production.
Yep. Yeah, all on staging, Josh, like because the users have to get their observability story right, make sure they have good alerts popping up and good backup strategies, whatnot. So continuous chaos testing in staging, mimicking production, and then of course, depending on the output, they can kind of promote builds, different use cases. Yeah, promote builds like saying, hey, like it's green on chaos. We are confident enough to kind of push it. for example, yeah, to protect fraud.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, I wanted to be sure that we got that stated explicitly. You mentioned there, so there's one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and since you mentioned it, it's a good segue. Community. So sounds like you have a few users. Could you just talk about that for a second? And like, are there any other significant contributors?
Yep. So IBM folks
Yeah.
have been like contributing from the AI perspective, Josh. So
Mhm.
to Kraken and bringing in that whole chaos AI piece, we are collaborating with them on it. And then, of course, like Pradeep mentioned, we have few universities like leveraging it and then providing us feedback through issues on GitHub, enhancement requests and whatnot. And we have like bunch of end users, like Pradeep mentioned, FSI, like more banks, financial sector users who want to kind of definitely measure performance under like chaotic conditions before like going live in production altogether, like for Kubernetes. So they want to say, hey, like I have my application stack, I want to feel confident. So there are like n number of we have had like tens of FSI folks reaching out and discussing using chaos testing guide to kind of build like a pipeline in their environment, if it makes
Cool.
sense. So
Yeah, that's great.
yeah. And of course, like we want like more feedback, more use cases. Of course, it's going to help every user. So we want to kind of get help from like the community, CNCF to yeah, expand it more. Yep. And also like kind of intern like harden Kubernetes for like running like applications at scale. That will kind of help everyone. Yep.
Cool. So anyone, let's just make sure. Anyone else have any questions here?
Sorry, I'm in a bit of a loud room, but really appreciate the presentation. Thank you for sharing what's been going on.
Yeah. Anytime, Abby.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, this seems like an ideal fit. I mean, this is what Sandbox is for, is to bring you in and give people more awareness of the project, make sure it's, you know, under a neutral organization. Maybe partner with others that are doing something similar. We'll see how that plays out, but that's not even so key. So yeah, I'm tending to think this is definitely a fit. I mean, it's up to the oversight committee to make that final decision, but I kind of think, Thomas, I see you're on the call. I don't know if Alois joined back, but if anyone disagrees with that.
I only saw the last few minutes of the presentation, so I was not too deep into the topic. I took a look on the project itself, so it looks pretty straightforward, and it looks very nice. But to be honest, it's not up to me to decide if this is a fit for the CNCF or not. So for me personally, yes, I like the project and it sounds good to me. But in the end, the oversight committee has to decide.
All right. So one other thing I'll just share with everyone is that the KubeBurner project, which is from the same team, similar team, is coming to talk to us on November 15th. So they're contributing that independently. So that'll be another chance to talk about some of this stuff. So join us again then, in a little less than a month. Yeah, all right. So thank you, Ravi and Pradeep, for joining us. Thank you for that presentation. We'll get the, oh, I was going to ask, can you share that presentation? Could I link it from the notes that we'll write up here? And so yes, we'll write up the notes. We'll share the recording from this. We'll share this presentation if you're willing to share it. We'll post a note in the Sandbox issue saying, you know, this seems like a good fit. You know, what we just talked about. And
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. We'll share the slides. Yeah, happy to.
Thanks a lot for your time and feedback.
And thanks for presenting this. I know a lot of work went into this. We appreciate it.
Anytime.
yeah. Okay, so the last couple of minutes here, is there any other topics that people or FYIs or Please take a look. And then anyone wants to share.
I have a great KubeCon. You guys are going to meet in KubeCon?
Yes, in fact, if you want to come hang out, we talked about it at the beginning, but I'll send you the blog post.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
Have
then-
fun.
All right. So yeah, so let's call it at that, and we'll post up the video later. Thanks a lot, everyone, and see you online
Thank you. See you next time.
next time. Bye, everyone.